everybody. My name is Matt Johnson. I am counsel in New Hampshire Association of Realtors and also a shareholder at Divine Millimet. This is a part of our multi-part series on risk management, where we're talking about various topics important to buyers and sellers. With me today is Beth Ottana, who is one of the members of our risk management task force. And the topic that we're talking about today is reviewing and completing the buyer agency agreement. So this is from the buyer's perspective. First, I wanted to walk through at a high level some of the key concepts in the buyer agency agreement, just so we're all familiar with it. And then I'm going to ask Beth to give some practical pointers about how to make sure the clients that you are signing up understand the document, and you can move forward from there. So first step, it sounds kind of silly, but make sure you get the right buyers. If there's more than one buyer, or it's a trust, or it's a different sort of entity, make sure that's on the form. That has to be there. Make sure the term has to be specified. The Real Estate Commission says that you can't have a license buyer agents agreement for an indefinite term. So fix the dates. That's an easy one. The form calls for that. Next up, you will see in the form there's a provision for when an agent is entitled to a fee if a property closes after the expiration of the buyer agency agreement. I think that's important to at least walk through and make sure buyers understand that there is a lag period, so that if you've seen properties if they've seen the property with you, but then the relationship ends, that there is a period of time in which if they go ahead and close on that property, that they owe you a fee. There's also the next section which talks about what the buyer's obligations are. And it's important to stress to the buyers that one of the obligations is really for the benefit of everybody. They have to give you information, and they have to cooperate, and they have to make sure and answer questions that you have about the process. And they have an obligation to protect the exclusive buyer agency agreement. So if they are approached or contacted by other agents, which may happen, they are required by the contract to tell them that they have an exclusive relationship with you and that you're working with your particular brokerage firm. So it's not just a one-sided street. Next up is probably the trickiest discussion, really, but it's about dual agency. You need to make sure that you explain how dual agency works and what this means. And I think importantly, make sure you understand what they're consenting to in this agreement is the potential for dual agency. And you need to explain that the buyers can say, look, I don't want to do it. I never want to do it. I don't like it. And it's okay not to consent to dual agency. But if they consent to dual agency now, that doesn't mean that they're going to have to do it. The second level of consent happens when there's a specific property at play where dual agency arises. And so it's important to let them know that you will get another bite at the apple, and you'll have another discussion about a specific transaction. So I do think that is important to talk about. And then the last piece of this is there's an additional provisions section. On the buyer side, I see that being relevant less than on the seller listing side, where sometimes there's unique considerations for the seller. But to the extent there's unique issues or timing issues or issues particular to the buyer that need to be in the contract, that's where those need to be put in. And my only cautionary tale on that is please write down factual statements or factual components. If you're trying to alter the buyer agency agreement in any fashion, you need to run that through your principal broker or managing broker and make sure that you consult legal counsel on that. But if there's particular issues that are just factual, put them down in there. So that's my job. In many ways, I have the easy job. I just get to explain legally what it means. Beth has the much harder job, and you all have the much harder job, which is, okay, how do you convey some of that legalese to prospective buyer clients? So I'm going to turn it over to Beth. Beth, any suggestions or anything you found in your experience about how to make explaining the buyer agency agreement easier for buyers to understand and more valuable to get through?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. I think the biggest challenge we face is for those of us using electronic platform, .loop or DocuSign, just not being able to have the conversation in person. So I like to present that to people early on when we are face-to-face, even if we don't sign it at that point, just to sort of tell them where we're headed, because I think it's pretty impossible to explain the details that you've brought up, especially the dual agency via something electronic. So that's one challenge we face.
Well, and I think it's a great point you raised, which is there's no reason you can't have that document to the potential clients early, so they have plenty of time to look it over and think about it before you talk about it substantively. I think that's a great practice point. And I also echo your comments that the digital platforms have just made it harder. I would encourage everyone to find a way that suits them to be able to have time to review it more carefully and get out of the just click the box phenomenon. These forms pop up and you have a mouse and you just kind of click through everything. I would encourage all agents to encourage all buyers to know, please don't do that. Read this carefully. If you have questions about it, this is a contract that we're signing. And then the other point that I didn't touch on is that it's not a one-way street. This contract also obligates the buyer agents for all these duties. So not this document can be a selling point. I mean, I think agents should should read all the duties that they owe to the buyers and explain to them, this is what you're signing up for. You are signing up for me to use my confidentiality, diligence, reasonable care, accounting, disclosure. There's a lot of things that I'm agreeing to do on your behalf to help you get this done. And so I think it really can be a sales point. What do you think about that, Beth?
I totally agree, Matt. I think we all struggle a little bit with the timing because of presentation, because you want to build rapport with people. You don't want to hit them with a 2-page contract right from the get-go. But I strive to do just what you're talking about and focus on that part of things and let them know that the form enables me to advise them and advocate on their behalf. And people seem, once you've had a couple of interactions and showings, people seem pretty okay with going forward with the form. But I like that approach.
Good.
I'll do more of that.
Yep. And then just my final takeaway is no one size fits all. You need to find as a buyer's agent what fits with you. But I very much like Beth's suggestions of, like, don't rush into it. Give them the form, give them some time and space to have some communications with you and also just some interactions with you so that they can get comfortable about the relationship as well. And so I think that probably helps people have a better understanding. So with that, thank you very much, Beth. That concludes this portion of this video on buyer agency agreements from the buyer perspective.